All right, ladies and gentlemen. Look, I'm getting to be so dramatic. So we're going to do another Tales of the Nakshatra Gods session. And we are talking about the Trinity now, the so-called Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. So today, last week, I introduced you to the concept of the Hindu Trinity and why they're not apparently more dominant in the Nakshatras than they are. And remember, we talked about the Purva and Uttara darshans of the Vedas, the initial and subsequent schools of thought about the Vedas. The initial school of thought of it, the Vedas are mostly supposed to help you do practical things and live your life well. And those type of gods are more practical gods. And the later way of utilizing and seeing the Vedas is to understand yourself and the ultimate happiness. And Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva play a much bigger role in that picture. So today we're going to talk about Brahma and Brahma's nakshatras. He has two nakshatras, Rohini and Abhijit. So this is a good example of one god being seen through Purva or Uttara darshan. The way that Brahma functions in Rohini is as a Purva darshan god, which is a practical god about everyday things. What is it specifically? In that nakshatra, Brahma is known as Ka. Ka is the first consonant, and it's the creator. It's the basis of all the other types of sounds, consonantal sounds. So Ka is the name for Brahma as Prajapati. If you read the Nakshatra Sutra, he's not addressed as Brahma in the Rohini Sutra. He's addressed as Prajapati. Prajapati means the person who makes babies in a male sort of way, like the progenitor. So that's Brahma's role in Purva darshan. In the more simple materialistic way of looking at the Vedas, Brahma is all about reproduction. And in fact, Brahma governs the genitals in the body. So that's what Rohini is like. Rohini is a nakshatra for passion, for sex, for creativity, for creating stuff, for getting stuff excited, for stimulating things. That's what a Rohini means. Aroha, get it up. And then Abhijit is where Brahma exists in the way that he is seen in the Uttara darshana. The subsequent, the more evolved way of looking at the Vedas, where you're looking at the Vedas for actual, not just surface level immediate things. So in Abhijit, Brahma is Brahma, addressed as Brahma, and the word Brahma means the one who comprehends things, the one who has knowledge, the one who has know-how. So Abhijit and Rohini are both Brahma's stars, but they're not the same at all. Rohini is the creative, passionate, energetic, go-getter side of Brahma that likes to make things and make things beautiful and juicy and make very abundant. Likes to make babies and likes to make things and make things grow. That's Rohini. In Abhijit, you have a Brahma that's detached, wise, far away. And you might have a question of, wait, is Abhijit actually a nakshatra or not? After all, I named my first book 27 Stars, 27 Gods, not 28 Stars, 28 Gods. And Taittiriya Brahmana gives you sutras for 27 nakshatras, not 28. And it just indicates that Abhijit is a part of Uttara Ashada. That's how the Taittiriya Brahmana treats Abhijit. It just takes the ecliptic projection of it. So maybe a word or two about what Abhijit actually is, but I think this is in the text itself that I want to read. You know, these sessions that we do are basically me reading and explaining this book, Nakshatra, the Authentic Heart of Vedic Astrology, which is available on Amazon. And so let me just turn to that and start reading about it, because I do believe I start talking about it right away. So topic is Brahma. Brahma owns Rohini and Abhijit. Unlike the other nakshatra, this is the thing about Abhijit. It's unlike the other nakshatras. Actually, it really is unlike the other nakshatras. It's not a nakshatra like the other 27, because it is not anywhere near the ecliptic. Now, do you know what the ecliptic is? The ecliptic is the plane, like the line that you would draw if you traced the movement of the planets. The plane, the heart, like the vertical plane, like it's called latitude. So the latitudinal plane that the planets go on, more or less, they deviate. Each one deviates a little bit more or less from it, but they're basically on this plane. That's the ecliptic. Most of the nakshatra stars. Swati is a little far away. Mula is kind of far away south. Swati is kind of far away north. But most of them are pretty much in the area. Most of them are very close to the ecliptic. That's why these are ecliptical constellations that the planets move through. But Abhijit is Vega. Modern astronomical Western word for it is Vega. The name of the star is Vega. As you may know, at this point in history, Polaris is the North Star. But as the northern equatorial pole rotates, it can make Vega actually be the North Star. That's how far north Vega is. It's in that polar circle thing. And that's the whole concept of what Abhijit does. It's the Brahma in relation to all the other gods. Brahma in relation to all the other gods is that he is the grandpa. He's the grandfather of everybody. That's another sense of the word Prajapati, by the way. The forefather. So Brahma is the dad of all the gods and goddesses. So he's not really quite on their level, on the ecliptic, but he's all the way up north. And if you read astronomical descriptions of how the things move, they're all like tied to this point, this Dhruva pole, which is represented by Abhijit. It's called Abhijit because it's the highest point. It's unconquerable. Abhijit, you can't conquer it. It conquers everything else. So even when the universe is destroyed and so forth, this is the highest point. It survives almost everything. Abhijit. So the other nakshatras are hanging on it, tethered to it, and they kind of drift over the centuries on that pole. That's the relationship of Abhijit to the ecliptic, and that's why we don't really take 28 nakshatras on the ecliptic. We take 27. But we have some, reverence for and respect for Abhijit, the 28th, and we take its ecliptical projection as being about a fourth of a nakshatra right over there at the end of Uttarshada and a tiny bit of the beginning of Shravana. You got any questions about that? Because that's a pretty hotly debated point. If you got any questions, we can discuss those. Hey, son. Thank you for your comments. Very helpful comments on other videos and things. Abhijit's not always in Capricorn, but it's always at the end of Uttarashada. But the relationship between the stars and the equinoxes drifts, and therefore the relationship between the stars and the signs drift. This is why actually Satabhishak used to be Makar Sankranti a long time ago. So Capricorn used to be, in Vedic times, Capricorn was in Varuna's nakshatra. Hey, Liz. All right, so we'll move on then. If you have no questions about Abhijit or the 2728 question. We can move on and talk more about Brahma. This is going to be an interesting one. This is a famous, often misunderstood, contentious story. So, Abhijit is not near the ecliptic. Its primary star is Vega, which at some points in history is the pole star itself, the northern point furthest from the ecliptic. Abhijit is named along with the Nakshatra because celestial north is an essential point for calculating the borders of the Nakshatras. You need a north reference point to draw your rays from to come down to the ecliptic, and that's the function that Abhijit fulfills.
Hello.
Hey, that's my son Damien.
Oh.
So hey, Damien also live streams, but he live streams video games. Hopefully they can't see you because let me see what they can see. All right, good. All right. Back to the book here. Brahma resides in his full-fledged form as the wisest of all living entities. That's what Brahma means knowledgeable, and Abhijit. And that signifies the ability to conquer all challenges by virtue of knowledge and wisdom. Abhijit means victory and Brahma means knowledgeable. So the fact that Brahma is the deva for Abhijit means that if you really want to be able to survive and persist and be okay and succeed even, then what you really need the most is not muscle, but is knowledge. Knowledge is the most important component for victory. Now, that's not exactly what Krishna says. In Gita, he actually says that integrity is the most important component for victory, which is super interesting. And actually, you'll see that Brahma actually lost some integrity, even though he had knowledge. But knowledge is really high up there on the list of things that are very powerful. The degrees for Abhijit Nakshatra is the final, basically it's the last pada, last fourth of Uttarashada. That's all you really need to know. So in other words, excuse me. In other words, the closer you are to the end of Uttarashada, the more you have the quality of Abhijit. This is how Taittiriya Brahmanas Nakshatra Sutra portrays it. And if you're right, towards the beginning of Shravana also, you also have the quality of Abhijit. Sorry if the stream isn't smooth. There's really nothing I can do with that. I'll just try my best. I got a green light here that everything is okay, so. All right, back to the text. We're going to get to this interesting story. Besides Abhijit, Brahma's primary nakshatra is Rohini. There he is not known as Brahma the wise, but as Ka, the procreator, the foremost Prajapati. Prajapati is like master of procreation. And the most creatively fertile of all beings. So you should now try to understand who Brahma is. Because I know they love to draw pictures of Brahma as an old man with a white beard. The reason why they like to draw pictures of Brahma as an old man with a white beard is kind of twofold. One is he's everybody's father's 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 father, right? So he's the ultimate grandpa. So to convey that sense of respect, he's portrayed in that way, as being kind of old, having a white beard. And also because most of the time, Brahma is active. He wakes up and he becomes active and he creates things, and then he takes a break and studies and meditates for a much longer period of time. So most of the time he's not so directly active. So it's more like he's a retired person. As far as like the Purva Vedanta would look at Brahma, as he's not that active. He's not taking an active role. in the, karmic affairs of things. Okay, but so, however, although he's portrayed as an older guy with a white beard, he's the most virile. He's the Prajapati. He's the Prajapati of the Prajapatis. He's the forefather of all the forefathers. So it's a little misleading to portray him as an old man. And definitely, when you're thinking about Brahma and Rohini, do away with the pictures of an older guy with a white beard. He's the most fertile of all beings. Think of what he does. His task is, it's just him. It's just him and a bunch. He comes into the universe first. Nothing else is there except a bunch of building blocks. A bunch of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. It's just all in its raw form. And he's the first being that can interact with this stuff. There's nobody else there. Except Vishnu, who's far away and who can only communicate. He can only communicate with him through meditation. So that person transformed that cosmic potentiality into every single bird and bee and flower and pebble and everything that you see, either directly or indirectly through the creators that he created. So he created this computer. Eventually, he's the one who created this YouTube, because he created the forces that created this stuff. So he's the ultimate creative principle. That's Brahma. That's why he's Rajoguna. He's passion. He has the quality of passion, and he's in charge of the passionate nature. And that is what you want to keep in mind when you're thinking of Rohini Nakshatra. Not a wise old man, but a passionate, empowered, incredibly creative, and virile individual. Now, there is something quite interesting. Brahma's life is very interesting and intense. Let's talk about a little bit about it. Let me see if you have any questions at this point. ZZ's got Rohini moon. So do I. Oops. So does Krishna. Rohini moons are pretty cool, pretty stand-up people. Because the moon loves to, not that I'm like a super stand-up person, but Rohini moon is a pretty cool spot for a moon. Every spot can be cool, but Rohini is kind of something special because it's like the ideal spot for the moon. The moon loves that kind of passion. The moon is the mind, and it loves to be thrilled and stimulated. So the moon in Rohini gets a lot of what it wants, and therefore can become really creative. Yeah, I think Sanjukta Das, I think you should say that. I think it's good what you said. People who are in the vicinity of Shravana and Uttarashada, their means for victory is going to really be to acquire better and better knowledge. So Sun has an interesting question. Why is he not the ruler of all the stars, as he was there when nothing is there? And physically he's throwing energies. So he is the ruler of all the stars. Do you not? You see, he is the god for Abhijit, and all the stars are hanging on Abhijit. Abhijit defines all the stars. But okay, so he's the creator of creators. This is the thing. This is when you learn about Vedic stuff, you see a lot of the pitfalls that people have in their worldviews in everyday life. Like a lot of people think, I want to be in control of everything. Whether you think that consciously or subconsciously, we always think, God, the reason why life is such a pain in the ass is because I'm not controlling everything. If I had better control of things, everything would be better. And because our basic idea is that the more powerful that we are, the more closer that we are to what God would be, The more power we would have, the more we would control everything. But what the Vedas show you is that the people who actually have a lot of power, they create other things which have a lot of power. So, they give space to those other things to exercise that power. So, for example, Vishnu manifests Brahma. And Brahma, as you're going to see, he's the supreme procreator and the origin of the sexual principle, yet he himself has almost nil sex life. But he creates all these other progenitors like Daksha and so forth. He creates all these other creators. So that's the true creative person enables other people to create. The true powerful person enables other people to be powerful. That's why Brahma is not saying, hey, all these nakshatras are mine. You see, he's manifests all these other gods, and then he gives them some responsibilities. It's smarter, actually. Right, Ayush Kansal, that's great. And that's the sutra for Rohini, is that it requires water. Good. All right. Where are we? We're talking about Rohini, the foremost creator. Okay. So, oddly, although he's a progenitor, he doesn't directly participate in sexual reproduction. And there's a controversial story from his early life to explain why. Okay. So now this is the controversial story. Very early in his creative process, Brahma created a tangible, embodied form for the goddess of speech, Vak, and immediately became infatuated with her. So, one thing that we also have to understand is the universe that Brahma entered is not the same universe, is not the same state of the universe that we have it in today. So Brahma wasn't looking at rocks and pebbles and things like that. Brahma was looking at waves and particles. And in order to manipulate these waves and particles, he's not using wrenches and screwdrivers either. He's using some sort of similar power that's on that kind of a level. So that's where the mantras are from. He had these ways of changing these particles by using. He needed to develop first, before he could develop other things, he needed to develop his tools. A lot similarly to how IT people will develop a software development kit before they really get into developing their software. It's the same way Brahma needed to develop certain gods and goddesses first before he could really get into developing the structures in the universe. So one of the first things that he needs is the ability for words and speech, because it's through words that you can manipulate things very, very specifically on the subtle level, with the level that's around the intellect and higher. It's all about words. So one of the first things that he does is embody the goddess of speech as Vak. Now, the Vak is very important to the Nakshatras, because Vak is associated to Mrigashirsha. Now, she's not the goddess of Mrigashirsha, but you'll see the analogy of the deer, the symbolism of the deer, and everything like that is a reference to her. So, very early he embodied Vak. Then, then he became infatuated, like completely in love with her. Now, if you think about who he is and who she is, you'll understand why. Because he's Brahma. What does Brahma mean? Brahma means comprehension. Brahma is your consciousness. Brahma is the guy who's got consciousness, he's got comprehension, he understands things. Like, for example, if I have an idea, and if I have an idea, then I would want to share it with somebody else. I need some kind of language to be able to share that. Even if it's non-verbal language, like some system of gestures, or some system of music, or some system of paint, of colors. But especially if it's a complex idea that has it's got like logic or something to it, I really need words. So Brahma, who is he? What is he? He's the person that has all the ideas. And when he sees the goddess of speech and communication, he's going to immediately feel, this is my spouse. This is the person that I need. This is what I need. I have all these ideas. She has speech. This is the match. So as soon as he was able to make Vak manifest, she manifests as a goddess, and he became like, we need to get married. We need to make children. This is perfect. Me plus you equals good stuff. So that's what happened. That's why I say here, it's completely natural that the god of wisdom would be infatuated with the goddess of speech, because wisdom requires words to express and shape itself. It's also exceedingly natural and understandable that the original procreator would be quite interested in procreating. He's got a task of creating stuff. So it's not like, hey, why is this guy thinking of marrying somebody and having sex? Because that's his business. That's his job. He needs to create stuff. So the only problem is, there's actually no problem in anything Brahma said. Now, a lot of people will say, oh my God, this is incest, because Brahma created this woman, so Brahma is the father. Like we're just saying Brahma's Pitamaha, he's the grandfather, and she's the daughter. Like, what's going on here? But that is not on the table. When you live in a universe where you're the only person, everybody is going to be in your family. So that whole question of incest is not even on the table. Besides the fact that for practical purposes, they're not human beings with the same human DNA system. But anyway, that is not the issue. This story is controversial because it paints Brahma in a bad light, but it's not because he felt sexually attracted to his daughter. She's not his daughter. She's metaphorically his daughter. But he's the creator of everybody. He's not going to have any option to be attracted to anything that's not his daughter or son. So that's not a part of the issue. The actual issue is this. The actual issue is much more interesting. The actual issue is that she didn't want to. She wasn't interested in him. So there's really nothing wrong with anything that Brahma feels initially, but when he says, wow, me plus you equals good stuff, and she says, I don't know, then he keeps saying, no, me plus you equals really good stuff, come on. So she explains why she feels like, So she says, you brought me into manifest form, so I can't help but think of you as my father. So I can't kindle any romantic interest in you. This is called virasta in rasa theory, when you have an emotion which has got an incorrect stimulus. So, like, for example, if you like, for example, like really old and sick people are not going to be featured in pornography because it's not a stimulus for sexual feelings. So, of course, there's some perverts out there that love everything. But for the standard taste, for the standard experience and the standard taste of sexuality, there's certain entities that are not fit as a stimulus. And one of them that's not fit for stimulus is somebody that you have a different type of relationship with. There's 5 basic categories, and one of the other categories is protective or parental. And so it just doesn't stimulate sexual feeling. And so that's what she told him. She's like, well, I mean, I look at you as my father. How am I supposed to change that and feel that you're my husband, not my father? It doesn't work for me. Right? Makes total sense, right? So Arjuna told that same thing to Urvashi. when Arjun went to see Indra, his father, to try to get a special weapon. And Urvashi said, "Wow, you're really hot. Let's get it on." And Arjun said, "I'm really flattered, but you're like my mother. I mean, because you are like the sexual partner of Indra, and Indra is my dad. So that makes you like my mom, and I'm not feeling it." So she also lost her cool. Sexual nature makes you do this because it's an intense attachment. So she lost her cool and cursed him. Brahma here, he lost his cool. He didn't want to hear her say this. He didn't want to see it that way. He's like, come on. I mean, it's not really like that. I'm not your dad. I built you out of some stuff. Okay? No, don't turn this into some fairy tale. This is real shit. This is the real, Me Too movement. This Me Too stuff, she would say this. Because this is the real deal. You got to see what this lesson is really teaching you. Is the potential for sexual harassment is everywhere that you have a man and a woman. Because a man can always dominate a woman in almost every field. And then therefore, even if a woman is disagreeable, the man can disregard that. And this lesson is about that. This has nothing to do with incest. This has everything to do with rape. This lesson in the Vedic texts. And this is what's going on here. She keeps saying, no, no, no. And he keeps saying, come on, come on, come on. So she starts to get a little bit fed up. Like, geez, this guy is not listening to no. So she wants to leave. So she starts to walk away. Brahma gets up and starts to follow her. She's like, this is not cool. So she starts to run, and he starts to run. Now, actually, this part's not in the book for some reason, but she wants to run even faster. So she changed her form from being humanoid, like 2 legs, to having a faster form. So she turned into a deer. She could run really fast. This is where the Mrigashirsha element is. She becomes famous as the deer that fled from Mrigari. Brahma is, or Mrigai or something. Brahma is called the one who hunted the deer. The deer is Vak. And Shiva is the protector of the deer. That's why if you go back and look at the videos that we did about Ardra Nakshatra, Rudra's Nakshatra, Shiva's Nakshatra, he's the one who stopped Brahma from chasing her. And that's the whole point of Ardra, is to use force to protect the innocent. And Shiva was the one who smacked some sense into Brahma. He smacked him so hard that Brahma lost one of his heads. So this is most tellings of the stories. Occasionally it's actually her brother. And the way I tell it in this version, there's actually 2 versions of the story told in the same Purana. One is that her eldest brother Marichi, Vak's eldest brother Marichi, said, yo, I mean, of course he didn't say it like this, but the way I would say it as an Italian is, yo, Dad, what are you doing? But he talks sense to Brahma. In another story, it's Shiva that stops him. The one with Shiva makes perfect sense with the Nakshatras. You start in Rohini. Brahma is so creative. He creates words, and then he gets so attached to his own creativity and passion, and he just wants to enjoy it. And even when that doesn't want to be enjoyed, it flees from him. And he's chasing through Mrigashirsha. And then when he gets to Ardra, he gets stopped. So, right. So what they said was, hey, look, whether it's Shiva or Marichi, somebody said this, what you're doing is not right. They stopped and said, you're doing something wrong. And that's crazy that you are doing something wrong. And in the Bhagavatam, they explain it's not a problem that she's your daughter. That's excusable because everybody is going to be your daughter. You're not a regular father. This is not a regular family that we're talking about here. That part's excusable. The part that's not excusable is that she says no and you're not listening. That's a crime. Now the good thing about Brahma is he's wise. So there's a force of sexuality will always conquer your intelligence. Or not only sexuality, but any strong passion or lust, which is what Brahma deals with as the creator. It will always wreck your intelligence. Because intelligence is subservient to mind. And mind is the thing that deals with lust. But if you have strong intelligence, you will recover from it quickly. And if you have weak intelligence, it will take you forever, or you may never recover from being overwhelmed by your emotions and passions. So because Brahma has such an extremely developed intellect, as soon as it was pointed out to him, he snapped out of it, and fully snapped out of it. So this is a good quality. Just to be a man, you're going to have a lot of Rajaguna. So a lot of times you're going to fall into these problems where you do inappropriate things. That is excusable because that's the way you're built. But it's inexcusable to try to pretend that it's not your problem, that you didn't do anything wrong, somebody else did something wrong. You have a right to be like this, blah, 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 blah. That part's inexcusable. So Brahma set the example that as soon as somebody told him, hey, wake up, what you're doing is wrong, he snapped out of it. And he felt so disgusted with himself that he felt like, oh my God, this body that I'm in right now, it's disgusting to me. Like, because I don't know what kind of body Brahma has. It's impossible for my mind to conceive of it. It's not a physical body, but the physical bodies that we have must be on the same template. So it's just similar with us. Like if you get really hot, let's say anger is a really good emotion to illustrate this point. When you get really angry and then you kind of suddenly snap out of it, you feel dirty. That's actually why we say things are dirty. You feel kind of polluted by that. All the hormone and everything that went through your body. It feels like yuck. When you snap out of it and you realize, oh, I was doing something wrong under the influence of passion, you feel the residue of that passion feels bad. When you do something right under the influence of passion, then the residue of the passion feels invigorating. But when you do something wrong under the influence of passion, it feels like disgusting. And you want to take a shower like 6 times or something. So Brahma felt like that. And the super interesting thing is he actually wanted to commit suicide to repent, as a Christian would say, for his transgression against Vak. But he can't commit suicide because he's Brahma. He's the heart in the universe. If he's dead, then the universe ceases to function. So what he does instead is he deconstructs his body and throws it off. And when you read Bhagavad Purana on this tale, you'll see all different types of the filth that he felt in there became different ugly things in the universe. And so finally he just was disembodied. And when Vak saw that, how he felt, like at first she's like, man, what kind of universe is this? The creator of the universe is like chasing me. But when she saw, wow, he's really upset about this, then she felt like actually it's normal. People get overcome by passions, but he's actually a good person. So then she came towards him. And she agreed. First of all, she came towards him and she said, you need a body. So I will make you a body. And I will make you a body. And you can try to imagine what this would be, but in the Purana, it says she created a body for Brahma, which was made from speech. So Brahma has a body that's made from speech. And she said, I understand your situation. You want a partner. So I will agree to marry you. But look, my feelings are my feelings. So I agree to marry you, but we're not going to have sex. I'm sorry. If that's okay with you, then we can get married. So, in fact, they got married. Brahma also has another wife with whom he does not have this restriction that they don't have sex. But Brahma and Saraswati married, but they don't have sexual relations, and they even live quite separately. But she gives him her support so that he relies on her for her ability, because he's knowledge and she's words. So the story has a happy ending, but a very interesting middle, doesn't it? All right, so what does this tell you about Rohini Nakshatra? It can be too intense. Like somebody said earlier, like, I don't know, I find Rohini people sometimes are really needy. So it's like Brahma, because Rohini is going to make passion. And when you have passion, then you're hungry. And sometimes when you're hungry, you'll eat anything. So sometimes when you're passionate, you'll just do anything, accept anything. So this is one of the problems of Rohini. And the way it's expressed in the sutra is you need water. Rohini needs water so that it can create vegetables, vegetations, so that it can be fruitful. But you shouldn't just accept that water from anywhere. You shouldn't go running out accepting any water. You should get good water. Okay, so there you have that interesting story, which actually people don't like to tell the story because we love Brahma. And it's there are only a few stories in the Vedas that paint Brahma in any kind of negative. Like Indra, right? He's got tons of stories painting him in a negative light. But Brahma, there's only like one or two. And this is one of them. So it's even interesting to see the specifics of how the story is told. When the narrator of the story is asked to tell the story, they kind of hesitate. And then they usually tell it in a third person. Meaning like they say, well, so-and-so told me. And then so-and-so said that Brahma did this. And so they kind of gives them a little distance from the story because nobody likes to talk bad about Brahma. Brahma is a great being. Similarly, Rohini is a great nakshatra. But you just need to be careful with the passion. And the best thing is to have the integrity to snap out of it and accept any flaw. Don't try to blame it on somebody else. It's your flaw. You're too passionate. What do I have there? Yeah, I have Moon in Rohini, and it's in my 6th house. So it's a little problematic because it's in the 6th house. So it's just like sometimes not patient with dealing with problems. It's Moon and Rohini in the 6th house. So, rather than saying, what's your fault for giving me this problem and why, these damn problems, blah, blah, blah. It's just better for me to just accept the fact that I'm this way and try not to be so much that way. All right. Any questions? Yeah. What are some good and bad houses for Rohini? Basically, soft houses are great for Rohini, or smart or creative houses like 11, 5, 4, 7, 9, 2, and 1 are great for Rohini. But like houses that are real strong, like 3 can be great for Rohini, but you can expect it to behave more like a Brahma, out of control. 6 with Rohini, it's going to be like not strong. I'm talking about Moon and Rohini, especially. So 8, it gets overly passionate. 12, it kind of doesn't have enough outlet. So here's an interesting thing. So somebody's asking, why is Saturn debilitated in Rohini? Don't think like that. Saturn is debilitated in Aries. Okay? Aries and Rohini have different relationships over the years. The planets are not debilitated or exalted in nakshatras. It's independent. Thanks, Shanti. Is Rohini connected to cars? No, but it's such a random, super long stretch to connect Rohini to cars. What are they saying? Like, it's signified by a cart. Rohini is signified by a cart that carries a lot of produce. So therefore it has to do with BMWs. That's really a stretch. People riff way too hard when they don't have an anchor. The anchor should be Taittiriya Brahmana's Nakshatra Sutra. So Rohini is all about producing vegetation, which is symbolic for being productive, being fruitful. And it's signified by either a bull, which plows the ground and makes fruits, vegetables come out, or a cart that's carrying vegetation. It's full of vegetation, or a banyan tree, which is a very super verdant tree. So the important part about the cart symbol for Rohini is not that it's a cart, but that it's carrying tons and tons of produce. Rohini is actually the agricultural nakshatra and the productive nakshatra, not the cars nakshatra. Liz says the suicidal part of the story is disturbing. It's actually... Suicide is maybe terrifying for people, but it's not... it's not an infrequently dealt with subject in the Vedas. It's a frequently dealt with subject in the Vedas. And often people take recourse to suicide. For example, Shiva's wife. Her first manifestation, she killed herself. So it's like, they don't have the same attitude towards suicide that Westerners have. And I'm not promoting suicide or anything. I'm just saying you're not super weird if you feel suicidal sometimes. The gods and the goddesses feel suicidal and sometimes they have no other recourse. Rohini and eyes connection. It's just that Rohini makes you very beautiful because you're fertile, so you're going to have good health. And when you have good health, your eyes will be a bit bigger, wetter. You have more kapha. And Ayurvedically, it's called kapha. So then your eyes will have more fluid and be bigger, longer lashes, things like that. What else we got there? I want to see my Rohinis. Why is Rohini the favorite of the moon? Why is Rohini the favorite of the moon? Others, it's not really, it's overdone. It's overemphasized that Rohini is the favorite of the moon. There's some talk that, I've heard talk in Shastra, in Sanskrit texts, that Anuradha is the favorite of the moon. So anyway, the moon is very desirous. So it likes the nakshatras. It really likes the nakshatras that stimulate desire. So the moon is really going to feel happy in Rohini, the Palgunis, Anuradha. Maybe it's going to feel stimulated. I don't know about happy, but it's going to feel stimulated and interested, like kind of alive. It's going to feel alive in these nakshatras. Moksha is not the goal of... You got to erase everything that you know about nakshatras because you learned so much wrong stuff. And just go back to Taittiriya Brahmana and learn from there. Moksha is not a goal. Somebody along the way said moksha is a goal, and then now everybody believes it. Just like nowadays somebody says you have nakshatras in your divisional charts, and now everybody believes it. Rohini is not particularly spiritual. Rohini is super, super creative. Ayush Kansal, I don't understand. So does one stop talking to others when they don't give one enough attention altogether? Oh, like you feel like snapped out of it like Brahma? No, Brahma was snapped out of doing the wrong thing. You shouldn't be snapped out of doing the right thing, which is to pay attention to other people. You should try to be snapped out from doing letting your passion control your intellect. That's what you need to be snapped out of. We need to be snapped out of. Urmila asks or says, out of the Trimurtis, Brahma is the most creative, but doesn't have a sexual relationship with his consort Saraswati. Why so many romantic stories about Shiva, Parvati, and Vishnu and Lakshmi? Why so? You see, also, this is the difference between the Western point of view and the Eastern point of view. Western point of view is like, you see everything that we do and everything that we are, that's the opposite of God. God's totally different than that. So we like sex, so God must not have any sex. And we have arms and legs and a face, so God must be formless. And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We eat chapatis, so God definitely doesn't eat chapatis. So Eastern view is not at all on that page. Eastern view is, you see all the stuff around us, that's God. This is what God looks like here and now. And this is the way that God functions. It's just small little individualized bits of God, but they're still functioning in the same way that God functions. So you like ice cream and you like to eat. Well, guess what? That's because God likes to do that kind of stuff too. And so Shiva, Vishnu, they have awesome lives. And they have really nice happiness. Brahma is not the same as them. Brahma is a jiva in Maya. But Vishnu and Shiva are Vishnu Tattva in control of Maya. And I know everybody wants everything to be equal all the time, but it's not. And you'll look too and you'll see that in India there's a huge number of Shiva worshippers and a huge number of Vishnu worshippers, and we're the Brahma worshippers. It's part of the reason for this is that actually Vishnu and Shiva are Vishnu Tattva. They're superior to Maya. Maya means, here in this context, Maya means the world which has been manifest under the illusion of seeming separated from divinity, from its proprietor. Whereas Brahma is actually a jiva. That's why he's said to be the first person in the universe, even though Vishnu is already there. He's the first jiva to take birth in the universe, though his birth is not from a common birth. And also, Brahma's got different problems than Vishnu and Shiva have no such problems. Brahma's got a little bit more complicated life. Brahma's doing work. Also, Brahma's working. Vishnu and Shiva are not working. They have Leela, they play. Brahma's a jiva and he's involved in karma and he works. Thank you, Chandra was married to the sisters of Parvati, but he only really loved Rohini. That's not true. I mean, let's not say it that way. Look how people are. Let's not say it that way. He favored Rohini. Some say he favored Anuradha. That was my favorite. Doesn't mean that he doesn't love the other ones. And actually, that tale is not in the Vedas. Or I never found it. I looked for it. The tale of Chandra marrying the Nakshatras is a folk tale, but it's not a Vedic story. Rohini and Swati Raju. I'll do a video on Raju dosha to explain that. Liz says, but sometimes intellect clouds the mind. Sometimes intellect. Sometimes the intellect clouds the mind. The intellect can't cloud anything, but sometimes the intellect can interfere with how the mind would want to function. The mind doesn't like to function rationally. It likes to do whatever it does, whenever it wants to, for whatever reason. So the intellect will impede that. If your frame of reference is that that's bad, then you'll feel like that's an imposition. But if your frame of reference is good, I want my intellect to control my emotions, then you feel like this is a good thing. But the thing is, it's also depending on whether you have kubuddhi or subuddhi, whether you have good information or bad information. If you have kubuddhi by having bad education or bad upbringing, then the way that your intellect governs your mind is negative. It will stop it from having passions. It will stop it from having ambitions and experiencing joy by fulfilling its desires. But if you have subuddhi, by a good education and a good upbringing, then your intellect will stop your mind from doing negative things. That's what I was telling the person before. Don't try to stop giving your attention to people. Stop trying to be a bugger and forcing yourself on people. Stop trying to be controlled by your passion. Stop allowing yourself to be controlled by your passion. So that's the thing. A negative intellect will interfere with the mind. A positive by stopping it from doing good things. A positive intellect will interfere with the mind, stopping it from doing bad things. Yes. Curious asks what I think is the most intelligent nakshatra. There's different kinds of intelligence. So you've creative intelligence, Rohini, is very high. Creative intelligence. And like kind of classic intelligence, Chitra is very high. Now, what are some other ones? So I don't really have a list right on the top of my head, but every nakshatra has a certain type of intelligence. Like actually Shravana is a good learner, which is another type of intelligence, a good listener. So or how about the Ashadas? Like Purvashada is like very intelligent for certain things, for how to make teams and alliances. Jeshta is very intelligent for how to do things behind the scenes, like that. So I think I might end now. By the way, hi John. It's good to see you always here. Agni Webdev from Mahadeva's Mahabhagavat. So can we play as playing Leela as the first Jiva? It's not always a Mahabhagavat. The thing is that the Puranas, the Puranas conglomerate stories, because Puranas are not, the function that a Purana fulfills is not to tell you history, but to teach you the Vedic lessons. So they don't really care about keeping history very pristinely organized in their tellings. So they'll mix a tale of this particular incarnation of Brahma with that another incarnation of Brahma. And this particular incarnation of Brahma was a person with such and such spiritual tendencies, and that other one was a different Brahma with different spiritual tendencies. And sometimes Brahma, there's nobody fit to be Brahma, and Vishnu will become Brahma. And they'll merge those stories in there too. So you could say that it's a Leela, but why do you have to say it's a Leela? This is just the way that embodied beings act. This is the way that the mind overcomes the intellect. And this is also the way we should act, is that we should let somebody tell us, you're wrong. And we should get snapped out of it and repent and do reparation for the wrong, for whatever wrong. If you want to super protect Brahma, you could say, oh, he only did this to illustrate a point to everybody. But I think he really felt that way and did it because he's the Rajaguna avatar. Purvashad is for what intelligence? It's like a Hitler intelligence. Did you see my Hitler video? I just put up the Hitler video. Hitler is a big Purvashada. Yeah, so Purvashada is great at just putting alliances together and making some kind of like strategy. Mars and Rohini, it's a little hot. Be careful of being too hot. Okay, boy, what a long day. A long, good day I had today. Oh, and so let me tell you this now. I just announced that I'm going to do 3 online sessions almost simultaneously, 3 online intensive courses almost simultaneously. It's from the beginning of November. So if you look in the description for this text, there's going to be for this video, there's going to be a link to it. Or if you look on my Facebook or Instagram or in the community tab for my YouTube, you'll see I just posted about this with a link to the 3 courses I'm going to do in November. I'm going to do a 9-session course on planet signs and houses. I'm going to do a 9-session course on the Nakshatra Sutra, and I'm going to do a 6-session course on an introduction to the Vedas. And it's all going to be between November 5th and December 13th or something. It's like 6 weeks. So please check that out. Here, in case you can't see the text, I'll just put the link in vicdicara.com/2019.php. That didn't come up as a link. Let me give it a little identifier so you can click it. HTTP. Oh no. That's my text. HTTP. There we go. And that's clickable. That will take you to the page that has more details about what's in these 3 courses and how to enroll for them. So hopefully we get a lot of people enrolling in these classes, because I'm pretty psyched to really focus on giving classes in November and December. So next week also, I think I probably won't get around to doing this next week, because next week I'm going to be in Boston or New York or something, because I'm going to be playing guitar in this band, and we're doing a 25th anniversary show. So I think you won't see me online next week, but the week after that we'll continue. Haribol.